So welcome to Cybersecurity CISO, and I just want to welcome you here before we start our presentation. So basically, today I'm going to talk about how to select pentest vendor and what are the problems you usually face while selecting the pentest team or pentest suppliers in everyday time or every when you want to do the some penetration testing. So now I will share my screen. Before I start, I just want you to put some comments there. You are live and you're sending some emojis that will increase my confidence. I hope you guys can see my screen. Okay, before we start, I just want to give you some instructions. During the presentation, you can ask me question, or instead of question, I would say you can get disagree with my all the points, and you can say me, put me on camera. Then we will be on the camera. We will discuss for a few minutes what is exactly the disagreement in that case, and the questions we will discuss, and also your disagreements we will discuss, and eventually we will come up with final solution. All right. I think we are all good to start now. Okay, you already know me. My name is Sandeep. I'm a founder and CTO at Secure7, and we do cybersecurity service solution provider, in short. Now, before we start, I think this is the pointers as usually I provide to my all the visitors. This is the key index that we are going to talk about, key challenges before we reaching out to the suppliers, things to do or things buyers should know about it, how to find pentester good suppliers, in short, how you can search for them, what helps buyers to make a good decision to choose right pentest vendors, and what is unique value proposition that supplier can provide. And finally, we will have a key takeaway for this webinar, right? So I want this webinar to be a interactive instead of just I'm rolling out the slides. You can always say that, or you can just comment, put me on the camera, and I will receive your message to put you on the camera. All right. So before we start, I think a lot of people you already know about who have joined about Secure7, but for those who are new to this CISO webinar series, we started in 2013 with the mission of solving cybersecurity problem. There are a lot of cybersecurity problem, but we focus on few particular cybersecurity problems. We provide almost 20 plus different cybersecurity services, including penetration testing and source code analysis. That's our niche, I would say. And we want to bring a lot of pen test company. Those are world-class pen testers, and we want to solve the problem which is in the cybersecurity. We are around almost 50 plus. I think the count has been increased every month. I would say we are adding a lot of different projects, and definitely our team is becoming more big. Now Secure7 is ISO 2700 certified, ISO 9000 certified, and we are certain empaneled company as well. Now we also do a lot of innovation in the company, and there are two products we already been released, and we are talking with a lot of different customers. We have onboarded few customers for Baghdad and OutSafe. We have 3 different locations. One is in New York, one is in Dubai, one is in Pune, and Pune is one of the region where we operate from as of now. So enough about Secure7 and myself. Now let's jump on the how to select penetration testing suppliers. This is the topic for that we gathered here, right? I am actually looking at only on my presentation. Sometime I miss your comment, then definitely I will just stop this presentation and see what are the comments which is coming on to the system, right? So before we start, how to select penetration testing. Penetration, as you know, that penetration testing is a process where we actually first find vulnerabilities and then eventually we exploit it, right? We just do not stop only after finding the vulnerability or reporting that. In the penetration testing, you have to exploit it and you have to present to your customers or your buyers or your whoever is purchasing your penetration testing services, right? So in order to get that successful transition of finding vulnerabilities, reporting vulnerabilities, this is really a complex process, I would say. And to achieve this process, we need to have a really nice methodology to hire a pen test company, right? And we will talk about what are the framework or what are the methodology or what are the points that you can use in your RFP, or you can always discuss with your pen test vendors as well. All these points will help you out to understand or make sure that this is the company where you were looking from so long, and this is the company which will help you to identify the risk. There are a few key challenges. I feel that every customer is having it, and while they are hire some of the pen test companies or few of the pen test company in this case, right? The very first thing, buyer needs to make sure that they have actual requirements and they know what exactly they want, so that they can reach out to the right supplier to who actually meet their requirements, right? A lot of suppliers, they just start floating RFP before having a home ground or before having a understanding on what are the requirements they might have in the company or they might have with the different decisions with the stakeholders. So for that, I think the very key challenge, I would say, suppliers need to understand their requirement first and before they go to the penetration testers. A lot of time, if the buyer fails with this very important decision, then there are very big problem is loss of time as well as loss of value. If you're keeping this loss of time and loss of value, you are also don't know what is actually your risk posture of your application. You have a very false information on your risk posture of your application or your digital assets. I may say a lot of about application, so you can also consider various other digital assets as well in that case. And buyers need to always want to fit their pen test supplier with budgets. The major challenge is you need to think on, is expensive better or worse, or will the budgeted team will perform worse or better? So this is very basic question that you need to answer by yourself to understand how you can hire a pen tester who is actually performing something which is you required, right? The very important part is trust through reputation, I would say. This is the major substantial and very important point that everyone needs to understand. Every buyer needs to understand. And once you have a trust with your suppliers, then definitely most of the problems or whatever we are discussing here will be solved, right? So these are the key challenge which we will be more focused on it, and by using these pointers only, we will be talking more about how we will able to select eventually a good pen tester company. And this is what I want you to understand till the end of presentation. I'm going to stop here just to check, do we have any questions? Do we have any trainings conducted? No, as of now, we don't have any sort of trainings, but definitely we will check out. So before reaching to the suppliers, things buyer must know. Whenever we try to understand what we want to buy it, before that we do the entire study, and this would be the particular points that we may need to discuss. Most of the time, every pen test has some requirement. Some of the companies has a compliance requirement. Some of the buyer thinks that their company has been maybe they're having some incident, they have been hacked, and they want to understand how this has been happened and what would be the entry point. For that, they want some specialist who is going to do the penetration testing. Some of the people wants to identify the weakness before hackers finds the vulnerabilities, right? So these are the major 3 points. Apart from that, there are a lot of other points also where they want to do the penetration testing. Like one of the examples, SOC 2 compliances, PCI DSS compliances, like I spoke on the point number 1, right? This is the business requirement that we're going to align our all the penetration testing. And once you know that there is a only compliance requirement, you can always pick up a pen tester from the commodity market instead of going with the specialized pen tester, right? But I always recommend to all my customers that you should go with the specialized, because I feel that whenever we do the penetration testing, we will also give you the actual results along with your compliance requirement. So you don't have to just pick up a commodity pen tester company and do some sort of checklist based penetration testing. Eventually, you will have a false risk posture of your application or your digital assets, right? So you always need to define a criteria before you go in the market to understand what sort of pen testers available. You need to identify what are the evidences you will collect from them, so that you will understand these are the very well known pen testers and you will use them for your penetration testings, right? You can even also contact with your old clients, old customers of pen test companies for understanding what is the what is the actual success story. So what I'm trying to say you here, we need to define a criteria before we go out to the pen testers. While doing the penetration testing, we also found that a lot of companies, they want to work on specific period of time, so that if anything goes bad, it usually not happens, but if anything goes bad, then eventually your IT team will able to solve it and the system will be up again. And so that we will save the times, we will save the pen tester time, as well as we will save some customers time if it is a production environment. And once we finalize with the operating periods with the pen tester company, you also need to decide on which environment that you're going to test the pen test. If you take a recommendation from my side, I always ask our customer to do penetration testing on the production environment. And after that, I would say that engineering, not really engineering, it is staging environment. And eventually, if you don't have staging or production, engineering environment is okay, but it is not really recommended, because we want to simulate a real attacks, which will give you the actual results. A lot of time you have to even understand if the engagement type is on site, or if the engagement type is on site. Most of the application, if it is internal application, then you may go to the on site related engagement type, where the pen tester will come to your office and they will do all sort of engagement process, and eventually you will get the result on site itself. But nowadays everyone is working from home, then offsite pen test is actually working for everyone. And that can be done via VPN, or maybe you can provide direct access to the URLs, or maybe your IP addresses, whatever the asset which is directly communicating to your system. And you can also provide with the certificate based authentication, or you can do the whitelist of the IP address. So these are the three ways you can provide to your pen tester company, your suppliers, or you can ask them that this is the way we actually work. This is the three ways, or if you have any other secure way, then that can be also used. Now the next thing you need to ask your stakeholders or your product developers or product owner, do you want to go with the gray box penetration testing approach or the black box penetration testing approach? When we go with the gray box penetration testing approach, then you have a really nice attack surface. Pen tester company will go through with a lot of different modules and application which is accessible to them. But when you do the black box penetration testing, your attack surface will be reduced, and the results will vary between gray box and black box penetration testing. In that case, you need to finalize whether we should go with the black box or gray box. This is your business requirement, and this is how you will understand which one to choose along with your product owner stakeholders, right? They will help you out to choose which one is important. This is one of the really important. I would go with the point number 3 instead of point number 1 and 2. Later on, I will talk about that as well. In the penetration testing industry, I would say now there are a lot of technologies, there are a lot of vulnerabilities is getting released. Small boutique companies, they have a different expertise and different specialized altogether. Like few of the company will be really focused on client side vulnerabilities. Few of the company are really good into the server side vulnerabilities, right? And if you go to the mega corp, then definitely you will get the report really nice. But yeah, results also, but it is totally depends, right? That's a debatable point again. And whenever you talk with your pen tester company, I would suggest that you should understand what is the final scope you have. Most of the time, if you share scope which is not really included or which is not really approved by your stakeholders, then definitely this is going to waste your time. So make sure that you should have a really agreed scope of work from your team, from your stakeholders, and you will get the right pen tester to work on it. And you also need to have one escalation plan which will help you to reach to the right person if your pen tester company is finding any critical vulnerability. So what happens, whenever pen tester companies submit any sort of vulnerability which is a critical vulnerability, that has to fix as soon as possible. But if we don't have any right escalation point, right escalation plan, or right escalation way to reach to the right people, then that is going to be a problematic for you, because this is the critical vulnerability and you have to fix this overnight if it is a really critical application. Before finalizing everything, you also need to talk with your legal as well in terms of how the data safety will work with your pen tester company as well as your company. Like they are going to see a lot of internal information. For that, you also need to prepare your documents after speaking with your legal team. So now we mostly talked about how you can reach to the suppliers before you know the things, right? So this is all done. Now the next step, you need to understand how you can find the suppliers. Very important for identifying suppliers. If you just do the Google top pen test companies or penetration testing companies or security audit or something like that, you will see ton of results. There are a lot of people, companies who are doing similar kind of work, similar value proposition they are already providing. So if you choose one of them randomly, then again you are giving your confidential work to that company where you don't know anything about it. So you need to be a very sure that this company is a right company for you. So instead of that, what we suggest is talk with your peers, talk with your contacts who are in the cybersecurity, talk with the people who are in the conferences. They know who is doing real work, right? They know who finds vulnerability. They know who will give you the right security posture of your digital assets. So this is really important. Talk with your peers. They will help you out to identify such companies instead of just going through with the Google search and all that. And also, I just said that infosec community have a lot of vendors and they have a lot of contacts. They know who are the pen test suppliers who can provide you the right approach. As I already spoke, right? So you may need to find out some special vendor or specialist vendor who will give you the right results instead of finding some header related vulnerabilities or just preparing the reports within the same time. Same specialist may find really nice vulnerability for you guys, but that increase some level of work but also give you the risk, right? So that is the real information that you need to keep inside. And once you have all this information, eventually you can float RFP or you can speak with the right pen test company to to get them on board, right? So these are the four way you can use so far to reach to the right penetration testing company, and that will help you and that will keep your all the confidential work and the ongoing process of your penetration testing. So I'm just going back to comments to check if we have any comments. Ashok, we are mostly focused here on selecting pen tester. I think those topics is not really covered in this talk. Let's be focused on the topic. Okay, so this is where the things rolls out. So we have only 30 minutes. So I'm just trying to cover up as much as possible. So if anyone has a question so far, just ping me there, bring me on the video. I will take you on the video. We will discuss. So I want a good vendor. This is the buyer says. But how do you find a good vendor? How do you choose a good vendor? Right? So first of all, I just said you need to trust your suppliers, right? So in order to get the trust, you need to find out various parameters. Like one of the parameter would be a background verification of the entire staff of them. Do you know what is the process they are following? What actually they are seeing? They are seeing a criminal activities, or they are seeing any criminal verification, background verification, or how they are actually working with the pen tester company, right? So this is really important. This information you should have. You need to ask your suppliers about any public report or sample report available for the review. This is really important. Most of the companies who are in the pen test industry from long, they have a lot of public reports. You can just Google it and you will identify a lot of public reports are available. You can also see their work as well, what kind of vulnerabilities they usually identify whenever they bring any buyer on their side, right? So you can always review those public reports and sample reports, identify every sections, see what possible sections are helpful for you to choose your vendor, right? How will the supplier will ensure the provider goals and scope of information will be covered in time box penetration testing? This question is also really important. You need to ask your pen test vendor to ensure that your application's scope is completely covered. Most of the time, pen test vendor, if it is a time box penetration testing, if there is an ad hoc approach has been applied, then you will not get full scope coverage, or I would say the applications coverage or the attack surface coverage in that case. right? So you need to make sure that you need to understand that what is the approach that will use to reach to that goal, or to reach to complete or cover the entire scope of the application. We cannot just neglect or remove that part of area, right? So we need to understand that way. So what I'm going to do is, like, I'm going to read that question and I'm able to help you out why we need to ask that to the pentest vendor. All right. How active supplier is involved in the open source vulnerability research or investing time on the research? This is one of the important question that you need to ask your vendor, because you have an application that may have a different technologies, which is including a lot of various ways of logic or business logic has been implemented in that case. So you need a person's mindset who is already doing a vulnerability research, who is already investing a time in your in the research. Once you give him your applications or digital assets, definitely they will find lot of unknown vulnerabilities. Pentest vendors always find known vulnerabilities. That's totally fine with us. But how about unknown vulnerabilities? Those can be found by people who are already having some experience in the vulnerability research, people who invest good time in the research. They can find such vulnerability for you guys. So make sure whenever you see any pentest vendor, ask them, are they doing any vulnerability research? If yes, how many different CVE they got it, how many different 0 days they have been reporting so far. You can get a list online as well, but you can always ask them if they have. All right. You One more thing is, like, there are a lot of companies and pentest vendor, they go in the conferences and they present their research at conferences, and there actually they get vote from the community that these guys, like one of the examples, secure 7 guys, they are good because they have presented X number of research. So you can also map your applications or your digital assets to their existing any research paper which they actually released, right? So those fundamental things that we need to check. These are the points that we need to cover, and what are the different types of tailor-made test cases vendor will execute on the provided scope of work, right? This is another question that you need to ask to your pentest vendors. Why? Because a lot of pentest vendor will come by saying that, hey guys, we will execute OPS top 10. Hey guys, we will check the NIST framework, which consisting of a lot of network related vulnerabilities. We will check for the Kubernetes vulnerabilities, right? But they don't know actual your application or digital asset. In that case, they have to work out and identify what are the different test cases may be applicable for your application, so that they will just be focusing on the test cases which is really important, and what are the test cases which is not really important that can be skipped, right? So make sure you will ask them what are the tailor-made test cases that you will create, or you can just give them a document, and based on that document they will prepare all the test cases for you. And if it is an ongoing process of your penetration testing, definitely this required for a very long time, so that every year you can test different types of test cases and make sure that application posture is good. Very important question that you even need to ask, and this question says that what is the manual versus automated penetration testing ratio? A good pen test company will have a 70% of manual work, which is actually a simulation of attack, which is actually identifying and going deep inside in the application. Automated part is only limited for the crawling or OSINT. There are open source intelligence related stuff if they want to find, and also if the application wants to get crawled or sitemap or low hanging fruits, that can be easily found through automated scripts that can be easily even developed. But focus would be like 70% of manual penetration testing and 30% for the automated penetration testing. Pentest vendors has to ensure the quality of work. Pentest vendor has to understand what sort of quality they are producing, how that can be assured. You need to ask them what are the tools you're going to use, what are the methodology you have for the different digital assets. Like if you say web application, it has different methodology. If you say there is a binary fuzzing, it has a different methodology. If you say cloud, then there is a different methodology. So every different asset will have a different methodology. If the technology changes, then definitely methodology has to be changed but technology is same, then that is going to be almost same. A lot of companies will say that OAuth guide and OAuth ASVS we use for most of the application pen test, right? You need to confirm that why we need OAuth guide or why we need ASVS, right? So these kind of questions you need to ask yourself within your team, or you need to do some research and then come up to the question, come up with the to the pen test vendor, like why do you use ASVS, right? The next question would be like, you can provide a small application to the supplier for performing the pen test as a proof of concept. Like you want to trust this pen test vendor. You're already being signing NDA documents. You're already giving some information of the application. Why not to do the pen test, a small modules to test, so that you will understand what is their actual approach to identify vulnerability, what is their way to identify vulnerabilities, how their report looks like. So there are this understanding you will get it through. If you ask for only one proof of concept, that can be a with very small cost, or maybe sometime it is free. It's totally depend on your RFP or the way you are communicating with your pentest vendor. But you should ask for the proof of concept. That will give you the actual clarity, right? How supplier ensure that the quality of the result produced in the form of reports. Right. So I'm just reading question from Ankur. He's saying that how they will ensure that each and every module has been tested for the functionality. Is there a way we can double check with them? See, this is very complex and time consuming for your pentest company. First of all, what you can ask them to prepare and maintain a Excel sheet which says that these are the module names and this is the category that has been tested and this is the result so far they found, like this test case is pass or this test case is fail or something like that. If that doesn't work, you have a lot of time, then you can even ask for their bug suite logs. Eventually in that you can see all entire history of every repeater information. So basically there are two ways. One, you can ask for the bug suite logs. Second, you can ask them to prepare Excel sheet which contain this information, modules, categories of vulnerabilities, whether this category is pass or fail, and if there is any comment. So this module you can follow, Ankur. I hope that can answer. And Ankur, if you want to join on the call, if you are disagree with me, then I can put you on the call as well. So Nitin saying is, how about the on-demand pen test vendor like web? So I cannot comment about any other vendors because they have their own methodologies. This is the way you can actually find out whether they are really good or bad, right? I'm going to share this presentation copy with you as well so that you can just go through it. And if you have any questions, Nitin, just let me know. I will put you on the call as well if required. I hope my screen is visible. Now we were talking about you can provide a small application proof of concept. That is totally okay. That will give you good results as well, and you will get also confidence on your pentest vendor, right? Now the next very important, how the supplier is ensuring that result produced in the form of quality results has produced in the form of reports, right? In that case, definitely you should understand the quality of vulnerability first. Then you should read how they are writing the executive summary, and eventually the complete report would be the final deliverables for you to understand whether they are good or bad. So this can be understood from your sample reports, or you can see their public reports available. Some applications are very critical for you. Your customers are continuously accessing in daytime, which is a business hour. Few of application needs off business hours as well. So you need to ask your pen tester that, hey guys, do you work off business hours? Some of the pen tester works, yes, they work off hours. Some of the pen testers say, no, we don't work. So you need to understand that as well. Some of the application you may require for off business hours in that case. And yeah, this is very basic question. I hope everyone is asking, what is the turnaround time for each pen test? It's totally depend. They may say that. So, but how it is totally depend on the applications or the number of pages or number of functionality features or the number of IP addresses or how big your network it is. That's totally okay, but understand thoroughly through the methodology and through the approach itself, so that you can also come up with the timeline. Like, guys, this is how much time we require to do the pen test usually. Next question is, if you have a lot of application for doing a pen test, you need to understand the peak pen testing capacity. You should understand how many application at a time we should run through every week or every month or every year, right? That will help you to scale your pen test. And if it is not happening with one company, you may need to hire another company to do the penetration testing parallelly, so that you can achieve your goals inside you in your organization. Also, you will improve the entire security posture of your digital assets. Now, I think we talked about a lot of questions, and this is really important again. Why? Once we finish all the vulnerabilities, we every pen tester or pen test company or vendors, they have to do the retesting. Some of the companies will apply some additional values to that, but it is recommended to evaluate who is actually adding additional value in terms of cost and who is actually giving a free of cost as well, right? It takes very few hours of time to revalidate all the vulnerabilities, unless and until it is really complex. In that case, we may give some time to the pen test vendors. So this is also required. You need to ask to your company. Any questions so far? We are almost finishing off. Now, what are the different types of reports supplier is going to produce? This is again important question. They should come up with the executive summary, technical details, and client executive summary. On top of that, they might provide you the Excel sheet daily basis based on whatever vulnerability they found so far, right? And next question would be how the vulnerabilities tickets are reported, because tickets contain very critical information, and that has to be encrypted. So recommend that you should use the PGP communication, or there should be some other way to produce this ticket securely to your company, right? And the last question would be like, once the penetration testing done, when you are going to destroy or remove all the penetration testing reports or the tickets or the proof of concept and all that, that has to be finished, right? That has to be destroyed, because that is the sensitive information. So you need to ask that question. Basically, they will come up with the 90 days. Some pen test vendor will say they require 3 years of times or something like that. PCI DSS ask them to keep it for the 3 years. So it's totally depend on every vendor, but you need to also check with your compliance how many days it is required. As I already spoke, before sharing any details with the supplier, you should have a confidential agreement with the supplier itself. And you need to also understand how you're going to manage the engagement. There should be a weekly check-ins, there should be a daily vulnerability submission from the pen tester company, and there should be holding of meeting every time when they found the critical vulnerability, or if you want to understand any sort of vulnerability, there should be a meeting available. Most of the time, project manager are available for your all sort of queries, and I think that is the plus point you will get from most of the vendors. And but you need to ask them before you purchase their services, right? Finally, the estimated cost for the engagement. Usually, these are the three major point of cost I would say you can use. Do not go for a very complex programs or very complex costing. Instead of just have a very simple, very basic, like most of the companies will come up with the mandates pricing. Some companies will come up with the hourly pricing. And also you can have a t-shirt size engagement, like large, medium, small, where it has a fixed size, fixed pricing, and that can be determined by understanding the application itself, right? So you can always have a communication with your vendor to understand how it is large, how it is medium, how it is small. So they will come up with some solution, they will come up with some answers that is actually going to understand what sort of the application it is, right? So this is the three major pricing concerns that you can have with your vendor before the engagement gets started. If, as I said, a lot of if you do the Google, like a top penetration testing companies or penetration testing companies in United States or India or anywhere, they are having same value proposition. They are providing exact same. What it is the deliverables, it is the reports, it is the way the submission of the reports. They are providing you the project manager, team leaders, and pen testers and all that stuff, right? But what is the unique value proposition now you can ask to your customers? So these are the very high level 4 points that you can ask to your all pen test vendors. Like, they should provide you one dashboard where your stakeholders are looking at that. By seeing that dashboard, they will understand where the program is going. Is it really valuable? Is it really worth hiring this company, right? So you will understand your actual risk within every engagement. You will understand what are the assets they are really into the risk, and you can take it from there. And there should be real-time streaming of the reported vulnerabilities, live streaming, I would say, so that you can just open this vulnerability in your Jira system, and that should be automated again. So using these points, you probably able to speed up your internal vulnerability management program. You're able to speed up your pen test program as well, so that you can add more applications, so that you can fix your vulnerability so fast and increase your speed of working and this will optimize your overall program itself, right? So this is the unique value proposition you should ask to your every suppliers, and basically you will get the answers whether they are providing or not, or they are already procuring some sort of software or not, right? So but it has to be asked. Okay, so before I go to the key takeaways, let me check what are the credentials. Ankur asked what are the credentials for the pen tester we should look at while reviewing the team of CVs from the vendors. That's a really good question. I think I have not covered it because it might contain certifications. So I'm not really against Ankur about the certifications, but definitely you can look at a certification, especially OSCP, GPAIN, and if the basic certification, I would say DCH at least. And if it is the project manager or program manager, he should have at least CISSP certification. But don't really rely on the certification, as well as always have interviews of your all pen testers. See what they actually do for you, because there are a lot of in this industry, there are a lot of people who are not really certified, but they are really good into what they do actually. So look at the CVs, have interviews, check what are the certification they have been done, and eventually you will onboard a good pen tester altogether, or pen tester company. Is that answer, Ankur? Okay, any questions again? Nitin, Ankur, and I think we have almost 17 people here. Okay, so I think we will come up with the final slide, key takeaways. I think this is one of the important for you, for me as well. So we discussed the entire process of onboarding the penetration testers and the penetration testing suppliers. Okay, but these are the three major points I think you should take care before floating any RFP or before meeting with any pen test vendor. Make sure you are clear with your requirements, so that buyer and stakeholder will be at relief, and eventually you will get a successful program. And perform detailed research on suppliers. Find out which one fit for your entire requirements. Do not just solely depend on the least expensive or the cost is low where we can hire him. Don't go for that. Or just check for they are the very big companies where they have a really nice revenue. All these things are not going to improve your security posture. In that case, check out only specialized pen test company. They will help you out to really improve your compliance. They will really help you to improve your applications, as well as your any digital assets which is there. So these are the three takeaways. I hope you got it, and I think you can also now talk with your different vendors with these questions, and definitely you will get really interesting answers. You can compare and check which one is good for you. And still, if you want any help, then I will be available offline on my Twitter and on LinkedIn. You can just ping me. I will try to help you out there as well. I want to especially thank Mario from Q53, Toby from Gartner, Michelle and Claudia from Gartner. These guys are helping me to understand and go in more detail. And follow us on Secureless7, especially Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Okay, that's it, guys. Thank you for joining this call and this webinar. Cybersecurity CISOs guiding on selecting ultimate pen test testing vendor 2020. All right. Thank you.